All right, last batch, I think, for the week. So I have a question. I think it was in season 9 or 10, not sure. But anyway, there's this scene where Carol kills the horse because they were basically starving and they eat the meat. But something that quite surprised me was the kids' reaction to that. I mean, it's the apocalypse. They've eaten far worse than horse meat, which is honestly pretty tasty too. But they were disgusted more than sad, which was kind of weird. I don't know, Are the writers this stupid to portray such a reaction to literal meat in the apocalypse, or is there some hidden meaning? I honestly cringed so much because it made no sense. I've eaten horse meat, so I was like, what are you talking about? It tastes great. But yeah, anyway. I don't know if I know the answer to this. I would almost need to go back and watch it again because I kind of don't remember. My gut reaction, though, is that there probably was some hidden meaning behind it. What I do remember about the horse is that there was a lot of interesting symbols in that episode. I know that there was talk of mushrooms, and there was something about the way they went looking for the horses, like they saw them and then the horses ran away and they had to go find them, that made me feel like the horses were a little bit of a Beth symbol or possibly even a Rick symbol, because it was like the horses were there, they disappeared, they got separated, they were playing this really soft music and they had the horses in the sunlight, which felt like a Beth sunlight moment, you know? And then at the end, they ate the horse and it kind of made everybody sad. And not that I'm not at all saying that because the horse died and it was a Beth symbol, Beth really died, but rather that the horse was viewed kind of as a symbolic sacrifice to keep everybody alive. And I really have a strong belief that something about what happened with Beth and Coda actually saved Team Family from being killed. We don't know what that is because we don't know what actually was going on there, but I've always explained it a little bit differently, I guess. One of the things that I have thought is that something about her not being with them all these years and probably being inside the CRM is going to make a big difference in the CRM war. So I talked about that last episode, I think, with Michonne and the weapon. You know, I think that Beth is going to do something like that. She's going to be the weapon or produce the weapon in some way that's going to make a huge difference when they're fighting the CRM. So if she hadn't gotten separated from all of them and been in the CRM all these years, or, you know, whatever her backstory ends up being, she wouldn't have been able to do that. So in that way, what happened in Coda will actually save the lives of all of Team Family. But it also could have been something that was going on in that moment. Like maybe Dawn had been in touch with the CRM and they were going to come and wipe out Rick's group, but because they were able to get a hold of Beth and take her back to Grady, they decided not to do that, and they just let them go. Or, you know what I mean? Something like that. And obviously it's all conjecture. We don't know. But if the symbolism kind of feels like they're trying to tell us that, especially in 509. You know, Tyrese in his death hallucination is, you've got Martin saying things like, maybe it would have changed something, maybe if you had done this, it would have changed something about Beth, maybe this, maybe that, but then it went the way it had to, the way it was always going to. So he's going back and forth and fighting with himself, but the writers are trying to tell us that this is exactly what needed to happen for some reason. And in that episode, we have so many foreshadows of the CRM. And meanwhile, Beth is there singing and playing her guitar. So it's really pretty on the nose when you think about it. Anyway, so sorry, that was a real tangent. But the point is, I remember kind of seeing the horses as a Beth symbol. So their sadness or their disgust could have been because of that. It was like symbolic of their reaction to actually sacrificing a person or having to make sacrifices in general in order for them all to live. Maybe something like that, because you're right that literally people wouldn't be terribly sad about that, especially if they're starving. People will eat anything to assuage their hunger. And it's not uncommon to eat horses when that's the only meat available. You know, lots of cultures have done it. So I don't especially remember that. I'll have to go back and rewatch the episode. But again, that is just kind of my gut feeling that it probably, I think you're right, and you're picking up on it, that there probably is a deeper meaning there. But I couldn't be more detailed about it unless I went back and rewatched the episode. And unfortunately, I'm probably not going to get the opportunity to do that super soon. So we're just going to go with this for now. Hi, I just wanted to ask you if you've ever heard about shifting. If yes, have you ever tried? I guess not. I don't know what shifting is other than, you know, shifting back and forth in your seat or something. I know that there's shifter fiction, but that's usually paranormal werewolf stuff. So no, I guess I don't really know what it is. You'd have to give me a little bit more detail on that. All right. I was watching the Ask vid you uploaded about the age gap thing, and I totally get what the user is saying, but I think the example used just doesn't apply much to the situation in TWD. I hope I don't write too much, but the thing is that laws are pretty much gone, and there's only morals, which aren't even considered much, especially many years into the apocalypse. We all know Daryl was a very immature person. He obviously matured a lot during the seasons, and obviously Beth played a role in that, as well as other characters. So I think anything people would say would just be pretty stupid. Yes, I agree. The only thing I could think of is the moment/time Daryl met her. She was like 16, and it's unclear how old he is or was, but probably 35-ish. Correct me if I'm wrong. When something actually starts happening between them, she's probably like 18. I don't know. Anyway, the point is people just won't get over the fact that he met her when she was 16, and this freaks everyone out. I've seen comments mentioning that it's just creepy because he met her when she was a kid, basically. But again, she was pretty mature for her age. And on the contrary, he was super immature and has a childlike behavior. Sadly, a lot of people just don't consider these details because they're dumb. Like the Anonym, do you mean Anon, and others who have mentioned, I've also seen plenty of comments about the age thing, and a lot of people actually have a problem solely with the age gap. I have one example under an edit or a clip about Beth and Daryl on YouTube. There were comments saying, yeah, I used to ship them in the past when I was younger, but now I see it's totally wrong and creepy, it's not okay, or something like that. So yeah, I can totally see why people are scared of the backlash they will get when she comes back. Sorry for the super long rant. No, I mean, I get it. But yeah, I mean, I'm totally with you and totally with everything you said. I actually do think that Daryl was supposed to be a little bit younger than 35 as the show starts. They're very vague about his age, so it's hard to know. But I think, and obviously Norman was older than 30 when the show started, but I think he was supposed to be more like 30, 32. Now, that's still a pretty big age gap because he's still about twice her age. But like you said, it's very much about emotional maturity versus actual ages. And, you know, there are real life examples that are way more extreme than this. I mean, a lot of people pointed out, first of all, this isn't a real life, but people pointed out that Rosita and Abraham were actually about 25 years apart. That's way more than Beth and Daryl are. And the only reason nobody cared is because they were both adults, but when Beth comes back, they'll both be adults. So I mean, they were anyway, like you said, she was 18. They actually were both adults, but they'll be a lot older, 10 years later. I was going somewhere with that. The other real life example that I was thinking about the other day is Celine Dion. She met her husband when she was 12 and he was an adult. And she, granted, has spent pretty much her whole life justifying that and just saying, look, I was not in love with him when I was 12. That was not the case. Once I got older and I matured, they did not start a romantic relationship until she was in her late 20s. And I mean, it would be kind of the same argument that you're talking about here because she did know him when she was 12 and she started working with him and he became her manager as a singer, and people could point to that and have a problem with it. But they had, as far as everyone can tell, a very, very healthy relationship. Unfortunately, her husband has passed away now. They had 2 kids together. They were never unfaithful to each other. I mean, if it's a healthy relationship, it just doesn't matter. And people can, when you say people comment that on YouTube, to me, that feels really disingenuous. And in some cases, it might not be. That might be really what they feel. But I feel like in the wake of the current political climate, when you have things like the Me Too movement and extreme feminism and all of this, and I'm not saying anything good or bad about it either way, but I'm just saying people tend to jump on the bandwagon of that. So when they say things like, I used to like it, but now I don't, I see that it's wrong, that feels like a political statement to me. And if you were in love with someone who was that much older or younger than you and you genuinely love them, you would not give a crap what anybody thinks. You would just want to be with that person. So it's a moot point either way. And I just don't listen to people who say stuff like that. I mean, yeah, they're always going to say it. They're probably going to rant and rave about it when it happens. But so what? I mean, we can't change their minds. We can't change them from posting about it. So I would say just ignore them. But yeah, I totally agree with everything that you said here. And yeah, we're on the same page. All right. So I just finished watching Dead City. I liked it. It was pretty good. I loved episode 6 and definitely loved how they're still exploring Negan's character and his frenemy relationship with Maggie. I'm so scared of what's coming next. But anyway, I just wanted to ask you, What's exactly the point of Dead City? Is it the beginning of an upcoming big war? It's so interesting, but I'm also so scared. LOL, I can't. I'm wondering what it is exactly that you're scared about. I would love it if you would write back in and tell me what it is that you're worried about. But anyway, yes, I do think it's the beginning of a war. So if you remember back in season 8, during All Out War, there was a part where Negan and Rick were in cars and they crashed. I can't remember exactly what happened. I want to say that Rick might have slammed into the side of Negan's car, or maybe it was vice versa. I don't remember. And they both got out and they both ran down into this cellar where it was really dark. And there was a ton of symbolism going on there. For one thing, they had a sign that said, "Abandon all hope, ye who enter here." And it was pointing to the basement where Rick and Negan went. And that is from Dante's Inferno. And it's a sign that's over the passageway to hell, right? So it was kind of saying that they were going into hell together. And there was just a lot of foreshadowing in that sequence that we didn't entirely understand at the time. There were things that reminded us of Beth in that sequence that felt like Beth foreshadows or Beth symbols, but more importantly, once we learned more about the CRM, because again, this was season 8, so this is before we realized that Rick was leaving, once we kind of got a better idea of where the story was going, I went, oh, okay, that's making more sense now. I feel like it was a foreshadow that All Out War was really only a precursor and kind of a shadow of the bigger war that's coming. The other thing about All Out War is that that's when I first figured out the tomorrow theme. Everybody kept saying, we'll do it tomorrow. It's coming tomorrow. The battle's going to happen tomorrow. We have to be prepared for tomorrow. And I was like, okay, tomorrow is a theme. And in the show, of course, they mean it literally, like what's going on day to day, but tomorrow is forecasting something in the future, right? And I'm not sure what it is, but that's when I first started thinking about there's some bigger storyline going on here. There's some bigger war that's coming, and we don't know what it is. And I think for a while we assumed they meant the Whisper War, and maybe they would make the Whisper War into something bigger than it was in the comic books, but that was not it. Like I said, at the time, we didn't hardly know anything about the CRM. So it was the CRM war that they were foreshadowing. Tomorrow is indicative of the CRM war and the big things that are coming down the line. So anyway, once I watched Dead City, and I didn't like that as much as I liked Daryl Dixon or even The Ones Who Live, but I still thought it was really interesting. It just didn't hold my passion quite as much. Anyway, they basically set Negan up as the King of New York, and I think that's going to be a big deal, because if Rick is going to end up leading the CRM, he might be the King of Philadelphia, and those are two big cities. And if they clash on this epic war with lots of people kind of scale, that's going to be huge. And so everything that happened in All Out War was just a precursor for the bigger war later on. So I do think that is why they've set up Negan that way, and a big part of the reason that he survived All Out War. I mean, I was one who at the time really kind of wanted them to kill him off for what he'd done to Abraham and Glenn, and then Carl died, which wasn't directly Negan's doing, of course, but it was in a large part because the war was going on, but they wanted to give him a resurrection arc. Clearly, they wanted to do some things with him to make him better, and I'm with most of you guys. Even though I was not happy at first that he survived, I've come to really like his character, and I'm really interested to see where they go with him. But the point is, that was not the end of Rick and Negan clashing, the end of All Out War. They're going to have a much, much bigger clash, and I think that's what Dead City is all about. I believe they're doing a second season, right? And Maggie has Herschel, so I don't know what her role will be, except that at the end it did seem like she wanted to go back for him and maybe regretted leaving him there like that. But I don't know. It'll just be really interesting to see. I almost wonder if... I don't know. There are so many possibilities. It gets my head spinning. Like, I don't think Maggie would ever be on Negan's side, as in the two of them fighting the war together or something like that, because she still hates him too much. But I kind of go back to that symbolism. I talked about it the other day from season 7, where I talked about Rick coming back with Michonne to Hilltop, and then Daryl giving him the gun, which is Daryl passing the mantle of leadership back to Rick. Maggie was already there. Right? So, I mean, it's possible. I always assumed that would be Rick coming back to Alexandria and the people who are there, right, in Virginia. But what if it's not? What if it's just everybody meeting again more like in a locale that has to do with the CRM? Because Daryl's already there when Rick gets there, so maybe Daryl's inside the CRM, and maybe Rick and Michonne are inside the CRM, and Maggie's there. Maybe she's with Negan somewhere. I don't know. Like I said, I'm totally just spinning out, and this is all conjecture, but I just think there are a lot of possibilities, and I do think that Gimple is definitely going somewhere with it. So whatever he's got planned for Dead City, he knows what's going to happen. But the biggest thing is I just do think that it's going to be Rick and Negan clashing again, but it's going to be a much, much bigger war. It's going to be on the level of the CRM, hundreds of thousands of people strong, and it's just going to be super, super epic. So I'm actually really excited for that. I mean, Negan always needed a stage. He always wanted to be in charge. He always wanted to be the center of attention. He always wanted to be heard. And now he is the king of New York, and he's going to get that. And I think we're going to see villain Negan come back out again, because he's exactly the kind of person where if you humble him enough, he can actually be a pretty decent guy. But when you give him power, it goes straight to his head. And I feel like he's going to go back very much to being the Negan we saw before. So I don't know if he's going to end that way, or if they're going to give him another redemption arc. I don't know. Like I said, the possibilities are just endless, and I'm really excited to see where they go with it. So I hope that answers your question. I mean, probably gave you a whole lot more, but I honestly don't know. I honestly don't know exactly where they're going with it, but I'm sure it has to do with the symbolism we saw in season 8. So, all right, guys, as of the recording of this video, that is all the asks that I have. I'm sure people will send them in after everyone has watched the most recent The Ones Who Live episode. But I probably won't get around to answering more until next week. So thank you so much for listening, and I'm excited for the upcoming episode, which should be pretty soon by the time this goes live. And yeah, we'll just see what the next episode of The Ones Who Live brings us. Have fun.